The morning sun cast long shadows across Camp Morrison's shooting range as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her grip on the Barrett M82A1. The massive rifle, weighing nearly 30 pounds, felt familiar in her hands despite the skeptical stares boring into her back. She could hear the whispered conversations behind her, the same ones that had followed her through 8 years of military service. "Look at her struggling with that thing," muttered Corporal Jenkins, loud enough for half the range to hear. "Should have stuck with the M4 like the rest of the ladies." Maria didn't turn around. She'd learned long ago that responding only gave them more ammunition. Instead, she focused on her breathing, settling into the prone position with practiced ease. The Barrett's bipod legs dug into the dirt, stabilizing the weapon as she aligned her scope with the target downrange. The range officer, Master Sergeant Davis, approached with a clipboard and a barely concealed smirk. "Santos, you sure you want to embarrass yourself in front of the whole company? This isn't some civilian shooting gallery. We're talking about precision shooting at 800 meters. Maria finally looked up, her dark eyes steady. "I'm sure, Master Sergeant." Davis shrugged. "Your funeral targets a standard silhouette at 800 meters. You've got 5 rounds to prove you belong here. Miss by more than 2 inches, and you're back to regular infantry duties." The crowd behind her had grown. Word spread fast on a military base, especially when it involved someone trying to break into the boys' club. Maria could see at least 30 soldiers gathered around, most wearing expressions of amused anticipation. They were waiting for her to fail, to confirm what they already believed about women in combat roles. Lieutenant Colonel Bradley stood among them, his arms crossed and his face unreadable. He'd been the one to approve her application for sniper school, despite vocal opposition from his subordinates. Maria knew this moment would either validate his decision or make him look like a fool who let political correctness cloud his judgment. She chambered the first round, the metallic click echoing across the suddenly quiet range. The Barrett's muzzle brake pointed downrange like an accusation, and Maria felt the weight of every expectation pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just about hitting a target. This was about proving that her gender didn't define her capabilities, that 8 years of dedicated service meant something more than checking diversity boxes. The wind had picked up slightly, maybe 3 miles per hour from the southwest. Maria made the mental calculations, adjusting her aim point accordingly. Her breathing slowed, each exhale bringing her closer to that perfect moment between heartbeats where the shot would break clean. "Any day now, Santos," someone called out. "We don't have all morning." Maria's finger found the trigger. The Barrett's trigger pull was heavier than most rifles, requiring deliberate pressure to prevent accidental discharge. She applied steady rearward pressure, feeling the mechanism engage, waiting for the surprise break that marked good shooting technique. The rifle erupted with a thunderclap that seemed to shake the entire range. The muzzle brake directed the blast sideways, creating a pressure wave that several observers felt in their chests. A cloud of dust kicked up around Maria's position as the massive .50 caliber projectile screamed downrange at nearly 3,000 feet per second. 800 meters away, the target shuddered as the bullet punched through it with devastating force. Master Sergeant Davis raised his binoculars, studying the impact point with professional interest. The seconds stretched like hours as he examined the target, his expression giving nothing away. "Well," Lieutenant Colonel Bradley's voice cut through the silence. "What's the damage, Master Sergeant?" Davis lowered his binoculars slowly, his face showing the first crack in his confident demeanor. "Dead center, sir. Perfect bullseye." The murmur that rippled through the crowd was equal parts surprise and skepticism. Maria chambered her second round, ignoring the renewed whispers behind her. One lucky shot proved nothing. For more to go. The second shot followed the same ritual. Breathing, calculation, squeeze. Another thunderclap, another cloud of dust, another hole in the target's center mass. This time Davis didn't need as long to make his assessment. "Center mass again," he announced, his voice notably less enthusiastic than before. By the third shot, the crowd had grown quieter. The joking and commentary faded as Maria demonstrated consistent precision with a weapon many of the observers had never even fired. The Barrett wasn't just powerful, it was notoriously difficult to master. Its recoil could break an inexperienced shooter's collarbone, and its size made it unwieldy in untrained hands. Maria's fourth shot punched another hole within inches of her previous impacts. The target, designed to withstand multiple hits, was beginning to show significant damage in the center scoring ring. A few soldiers in the back of the crowd began to drift away, their entertainment value apparently exhausted. "Last shot, Santos," Master Sergeant Davis called out, though his tone had shifted from mocking to merely professional. "Make it count." Maria chambered her final round, acutely aware that this moment would define how she was perceived for months to come. A miss now would overshadow her previous successes. The pressure was immense, but she'd dealt with pressure before. In Afghanistan, in Iraq, in training exercises where failure meant watching fellow soldiers get hurt. She settled into her shooting position one last time, feeling the Barrett's weight distribute across her body. The wind had died down to almost nothing, removing one variable from the equation. 800 meters stretched out before her like a challenge written in dirt and steel. The final shot was her best yet. The bullet struck the target's exact center, obliterating what remained of the bullseye and sending fragments of paper and wood flying in all directions. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the distant sound of brass clattering on concrete as Maria's ejected cases settled. Master Sergeant Davis walked downrange to examine the target personally, leaving the crowd to process what they'd witnessed. Maria remained in position, unwilling to show any emotion until the official verdict was rendered. She'd learned that celebrating too early often backfired, especially when you were already fighting an uphill battle for respect. When Davis returned, his demeanor had undergone a complete transformation. The smug confidence was gone, replaced by grudging professional respect. He stopped in front of Maria's position and cleared his throat. 5 rounds, 5 hits, he announced to the assembled crowd, all within a 2-inch group at 800 meters. That's better shooting than most of our certified snipers manage on their best day. The reaction was mixed. Some soldiers nodded appreciatively, recognizing exceptional marksmanship regardless of who was behind the rifle. Others looked uncomfortable, as if Maria's success somehow challenged their worldview. A few simply walked away, apparently unwilling to acknowledge what they'd witnessed. Lieutenant Colonel Bradley approached Maria's position as she began clearing the Barrett's chamber. His expression remained neutral, but she thought she detected approval in his eyes. "Outstanding shooting, Staff Sergeant," he said formally. "I believe you've earned your spot in the next sniper course." Maria finally allowed herself a small smile as she secured the rifle's safety. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." "I don't think you could if you tried," Bradley replied. Then, loud enough for the remaining observers to hear, he added, "Anyone who thinks gender matters more than skill just got education. I suggest you all remember that." As the crowd dispersed, Maria began the methodical process of cleaning and securing the Barrett. The ritual gave her time to process what had just happened. She'd passed the first test, but she knew it was only the beginning. Sniper school would bring new challenges, new skeptics, and new opportunities to prove herself. Corporal Jenkins, one of her most vocal critics, approached as she was packing up her gear. His face showed a mixture of embarrassment and grudging respect. "Hey, Santos," he said quietly. "That was some pretty impressive shooting." Maria looked up from the rifle case, studying his face for signs of sarcasm. Finding none, she nodded. "Thanks, Jenkins. 8 years of practice tends to pay off." "Yeah, well," he shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe I was wrong about some things. Good luck in sniper school." As he walked away, Maria reflected on how one moment of demonstrated competence could shift perceptions. It wasn't fair that she had to prove herself more thoroughly than her male counterparts, but she'd accepted that reality long ago. What mattered was that she'd done it, convincingly and publicly. The Barrett M82-01 lay disassembled in its case, the weapon that had been her gateway to the next level of her military career. She'd carried it with confidence, fired it with precision, and silenced the doubters who thought her gender made her unsuitable for elite units. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she could rest knowing she'd earned her place through skill alone. Master Sergeant Davis appeared one more time as she finished packing up. His earlier hostility had been replaced by professional courtesy, though she sensed it was still grudging. "Santos, I owe you an apology," he said stiffly. "I made assumptions about your capabilities that were unfounded. You've got some serious talent with that rifle." Maria straightened, recognizing that this was likely the closest thing to respect she'd received from him. "I appreciate that, Master Sergeant. We all have our strengths." "Indeed we do," he replied. "I'll be interested to see how you perform in the full course. Hitting stationary targets is one thing, but sniper school will test you in ways that go far beyond marksmanship." He wasn't wrong. Maria knew that sniper training involved stalking, camouflage, observation skills, and mental endurance that would push her to her limits. But she also knew that she was ready for whatever came next. The Barrett had been her introduction to a world where performance mattered more than politics, and she intended to make the most of it. As she walked back toward the barracks, rifle case slung over her shoulder, Maria felt the weight of both the weapon and the expectations it represented. She'd taken the first step on a journey that would either make her one of the military's elite or break her completely. Either way, she'd face it with the same calm precision she'd shown on the range. The sun was setting over Camp Morrison, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded her of tracer rounds in the distance. Tomorrow she'd begin sniper school, where the real test of her abilities would begin. Tonight, she'd savor the memory of perfect shots and silence critics, knowing that both would sustain her through the challenges ahead. The Barrett M82A1 had spoken for her when words weren't enough, delivering her message with devastating precision to a target 800 meters away. In the morning, she'd learned to speak that language fluently, to become one with a weapon that demanded nothing less than perfection from those who wielded it. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had proven she belonged, one shot at a time. 3 weeks in his sniper school, Maria found herself belly down in a patch of Georgia scrub pine, her ghillie suit blending her into the forest floor like a piece of living camouflage. Sweat ran down her face despite the early morning chill, mixing with the face paint that had become as familiar as her own skin. The Barrett lay beside her, wrapped in burlap and vegetation, transformed from a precise instrument of war into something that belonged to the wilderness itself. Instructor Staff Sergeant Kowalski moved through the training area like a predator, his experienced eyes searching for the telltale signs that would reveal student positions. 24 candidates had started the course. Only 16 remained, and Maria knew that number would continue to drop as the pressure intensified. "I can smell your fear from here, ladies," Kowalski called out, his voice carrying across the practice range. "Fear has a scent, and right now this place reeks of it. Someone's about to get found, and when they do, they're going home." Maria controlled her breathing, knowing that the instructor was playing psychological games designed to break concentration. She'd been in position for 6 hours, moving only inches at a time to adjust her camouflage as the sun changed angle. Her target was a silhouette positioned 1,200 meters away, barely visible through the morning haze. The challenge wasn't just making the shot. Any competent marksman could hit a stationary target at that distance with proper equipment and conditions. The real test was remaining undetected while doing it. Hidden observers were scattered throughout the area, equipped with binoculars and thermal imaging equipment. Get spotted, and you failed regardless of marksmanship ability. "Santos," Kowalski's voice seemed closer now, though Maria couldn't risk turning to look. "I know you're out here somewhere. Your little demonstration on the range was impressive, but this is where we separate the shooters from the snipers." A branch snapped somewhere to her left, followed by Kowalski's satisfied grunt. "Candidate Morrison, you're done. Stand up and report to the rally point." Your boot was visible from 3 angles, and that bright watch face caught the sun like a signal mirror. Maria heard Morrison curse under his breath as he gathered his gear. That brought the count down to 15. She made a mental note to check her own equipment for reflective surfaces, though she'd already taped over anything that might catch light. The morning wore on with agonizing slowness. Maria's position had been carefully chosen after hours of reconnaissance the previous day. A slight depression in the ground, sheltered by overhanging branches, with a clear shooting lane to the target. She'd built her hide methodically, using natural materials to create a fighting position that would be invisible from more than 10 feet away. Movement 2 o'clock, Kowalski announced. Someone just shifted position and gave themselves away. Candidate Williams, pack it up. 14 remaining. Maria felt a bead of sweat form at her temple and resisted the urge to wipe it away. Any movement, no matter how small, could betray her position. She learned to work within the confines of absolute stillness, breathing shallowly, shifting her weight microscopically to prevent muscle cramps. The Barrett scope showed the target with crystal clarity, but Maria hadn't yet been given permission to engage. This phase of the exercise was pure hide and seek, testing the student's ability to remain concealed under the most intense scrutiny. The shooting would come later, assuming she made it that far. Interesting, Kowalski mused, his voice seeming to come from directly overhead. I've got 13 visible positions, which means someone's actually good at this. Let's see if we can flush out her ghost. Maria heard footsteps approaching her general area, deliberate and slow. Kowalski was conducting a detailed search now, using his years of experience to identify hiding spots that looked promising. She forced herself to think like vegetation, to become part of the forest floor rather than a soldier hiding in it. The instructor's boots appeared in her peripheral vision, close enough that she could have reached out and touched them. He stood motionless for long minutes, scanning the area with professional thoroughness. Maria's heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it, but she maintained perfect stillness. Well, Kowalski said softly. Someone knows what they're doing. Whoever you are, you just earned yourself a shot at the target. All remaining candidates, you have permission to engage when ready. One shot only. Make it count. This was the moment Maria had been preparing for. She had to transition from hiding to shooting without revealing her position to the observers. The Barrett needed to be brought online smoothly, aligned with the target, and fired accurately while maintaining concealment. It was a complex dance that required perfect coordination. She began the process by minutely adjusting the rifle's position, moving it fraction of an inch at a time to align with her target. The scope's crosshairs found the silhouette downrange, 1,200 meters away and partially obscured by atmospheric distortion. Wind flags along the range showed a light crosswind from the southeast, requiring compensation. The first shot echoed across the training area, followed quickly by several others. Maria watched through her scope as candidates revealed themselves by muzzle flash and sound, their carefully constructed hides abandoned in favor of clear shooting positions. It was a rookie mistake that she'd seen before, the temptation to prioritize accuracy over concealment. She waited, letting the others expose themselves while she refined her shot placement. The wind had shifted slightly, and the morning sun was creating thermal currents that would affect bullet trajectory. Maria made the calculations automatically, her years of experience translating environmental factors into precise scope adjustments. When she finally fired, the Barrett's report was muffled by her carefully constructed hide. The muzzle flash was directed downward into the earth, and the sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. 1,200 meters away, the target shuddered as her bullet found its mark. Cease fire, cease fire, Kowalski called out. All candidates stand and report to the rally point for target assessment. Maria began the delicate process of extracting herself from her hide without destroying the construction. It had taken hours to build, and part of the evaluation involved maintaining concealment even during withdrawal. She moved slowly, collecting her gear and camouflaging her former position to erase any trace of her presence. When she finally stood, Kowalski was waiting with a pair of binoculars and an expression of professional interest. The other candidates were already gathering at the rally point, their ghillie suits muddy and torn from a morning of crawling through Georgia wilderness. Outstanding hide construction, Santos, the instructor said quietly. I walked right past you twice and never had a clue you were there. That's advanced level fieldcraft. Thank you, instructor, Maria replied, though she knew the real test would be her shot placement. Concealment meant nothing if she couldn't deliver accurate fire when it mattered. The walk to the target felt longer than the 1,200 meters it actually covered. Maria could see the other candidates evaluating their shots, some looking confident, while others appeared worried about their performance. The silhouette target was peppered with holes, evidence of varying degrees of marksmanship skill. Kowalski examined each impact point methodically, calling out names and scores as he worked through the target. Most shots were center mass hits, acceptable but not exceptional. A few were clear misses that would result in immediate course failure. Maria waited for her turn with practiced patience. Santos, Kowalski called finally, pointing to a hole in the target's upper chest area. Dead center hit, compensated perfectly for wind and range. Textbook precision shooting under field conditions. Relief flooded through Maria, though she kept her expression neutral. She'd passed another milestone in a course designed to eliminate all but the most capable candidates. But she also knew that each success only raised expectations for the next challenge. That concludes today's exercise, Kowalski announced to the group. 14 candidates completed the stalking portion successfully. 13 made acceptable shots on target. Candidate Rodriguez, you failed to maintain concealment during target engagement. Pack your gear and report to administration for processing back to your unit. 13 remained. The mathematics of attrition were relentless in sniper school, designed to identify the handful of soldiers who possessed the unique combination of skills and temperament required for the mission. Maria had survived another cut, but she knew the challenges would only intensify. The march back to base camp gave her time to analyze her performance objectively. The hide construction had been nearly perfect, incorporating lessons learned from years of hunting and fieldcraft training. Her shot placement was exactly where she'd intended, demonstrating consistent precision under stress. But she also recognized areas for improvement, small details that could mean the difference between success and failure in real combat conditions. Santos, Kowalski fell into step beside her as they approached the compound. You're showing some serious potential out there. Your fieldcraft is better than most graduates I've seen, and your shooting speaks for itself. Thank you, instructor. I'm just trying to meet the standard. You're exceeding it, he replied. But don't let that go to your head. We got urban environment training next week, followed by unknown distance shooting and team movement exercises. The course gets harder from here, not easier. Maria nodded, understanding that today's success was just one step in a longer journey. Urban sniper operations presented entirely different challenges, requiring adaptation to concrete and steel environments where traditional camouflage techniques were useless. Unknown distance shooting would test her ability to estimate range and make calculations without the benefit of precise measurements. That evening, she stripped and cleaned the Barrett with methodical precision, checking every component for signs of wear or fouling. The rifle had performed flawlessly during the day's exercise, but Maria knew that mechanical reliability was only as good as the maintenance that supported it. She'd seen excellent shooters fail because they neglected their equipment. The other candidates were engaged in similar rituals, each focused on their own gear and preparation for tomorrow's challenges. The competitive atmosphere was intense, but generally respectful. They were all professionals who understood that individual success didn't diminish the achievements of others. Candidate Johnson, one of the few remaining candidates who'd initially questioned Maria's presence in the course, approached as she finished reassembling her rifle. His earlier hostility had been replaced by grudging professional respect. That was some impressive work today, he said without preamble. I've been hunting since I was 12, and I've never seen better fieldcraft from someone your size. Maria looked up from her cleaning kit, evaluating his sincerity. Size can be an advantage when you're trying to disappear. Less body mass to hide, smaller signature to camouflage. Fair point, Johnson acknowledged. I guess I had some preconceived notions that needed adjusting. You've definitely earned your place here. It was a small victory in the larger war for acceptance, but Maria appreciated the gesture. Changing minds one person at a time was how progress happened, especially in environments where tradition and prejudice ran deep. She'd proven herself through performance rather than politics, and the results were beginning to show. The night brought planning sessions for the next day's training, studying urban environment techniques, and reviewing procedures for operating in built-up areas. Maria absorbed the material with focused intensity, knowing that each piece of knowledge could prove critical when the pressure mounted. Outside, the Georgia wilderness stretched endlessly under a star-filled sky. Somewhere in that darkness, future snipers were learning to become one with their environment, to kill with precision from distances their targets never saw coming. Maria had proven she belonged among them, but the path ahead remained challenging and unforgiving. The Barrett M82A1 lay disassembled on her bunk, its components clean and ready for tomorrow's tests. She'd mastered the weapon's capabilities and learned to trust its precision, but she also understood that the rifle was only as effective as the soldier who wielded it. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to prove that she was worthy of the trust placed in her hands. The mock urban environment spread before Maria like a concrete maze designed by someone with a twisted sense of humor. Three-story buildings line narrow streets, creating a labyrinth of windows, rooftops, and alleyways that could conceal threats from countless angles. This was Fort Benning's urban warfare training facility, where soldiers learned to fight in the kind of close-quarters environment that made traditional sniping nearly impossible. Maria adjusted her position on the roof of Building 7, the Barrett's bipod legs scraping against gravel as she searched for her assigned target. Below, the remaining 11 candidates from her sniper class were scattered throughout the training area, each facing scenarios designed to test their adaptability under extreme pressure. The urban environment eliminated many of the traditional advantages that snipers relied upon, forcing them to improvise with minimal concealment and restricted fields of view. Alpha Team, this is Control. The radio crackled in her earpiece. Hostiles have been identified in Building 3, second floor, northeast corner window. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Repeat, weapons-free. Maria swung her scope toward the target building, scanning the windows methodically for signs of movement. Urban sniping required different skills than field operations. Ranges were typically much shorter, often under 400 meters, but the complications were exponentially greater. Civilian considerations, structural obstacles, and limited escape routes turned every shot into a complex tactical problem. There, movement behind a partially open window on the designated floor. Maria could make out the silhouette of an armed figure, though the angle and lighting made precise identification difficult. In real combat, this would be the moment where split-second decisions meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. She settled into her shooting position, feeling the Barrett's weight distribute across her body. The urban environment created wind patterns that were unpredictable and constantly changing as air currents bounced off buildings and through narrow corridors. Traditional ballistic calculations were complicated by these factors, requiring intuitive adjustments based on experience rather than mathematical precision. The target moved again, revealing more of his profile. Maria could see the distinctive outline of an assault rifle, confirming hostile intent. She aligned her crosshairs with the center of the visible mass, compensating for the slight downward angle and estimated wind drift. At this range, environmental factors were minimal, but the pressure of performing under observation made every detail crucial. Contact, Building 3, another candidate reported over the radio. I have eyes on multiple hostiles, requesting permission to engage. Negative, Bravo Team, Control responded. Hold position and maintain surveillance. Alpha Team has priority engagement. Maria understood the tactical situation now. This wasn't just a marksmanship test. It was a lesson in fire control and mission coordination. Multiple snipers were positioned with overlapping fields of view, but only one had been authorized to take the shot. In real combat, such coordination prevented friendly fire incidents and ensured that primary targets were neutralized by the most qualified shooter. She took a deep breath and began her firing sequence. The Barrett's trigger required deliberate pressure, and Maria applied it steadily while maintaining perfect sight alignment. The urban environment amplified sound in unpredictable ways, making noise discipline crucial for maintaining concealment after engagement. The rifle fired with its characteristic thunderclap, the muzzle blast echoing off surrounding buildings like a miniature thunderstorm. Maria tracked her bullet's impact through the scope, watching as the target jerked and fell back from the window. Center hit. Mission accomplished. Good effect on target. Alpha Team. Control confirmed. Hostile neutralized. All teams, prepare for scenario transition in 60 seconds. Maria immediately began assessing her position for potential counter-sniper threats. Urban environments were notorious for creating opportunities for enemy snipers to triangulate friendly positions based on muzzle flash and sound. The smart move was to relocate immediately after engagement, finding a new position that offered both concealment and continued effectiveness. She broke down the Barrett's bipod and began moving toward the building's interior, where a pre-planned escape route would take her to an alternate firing position. The scenario was designed to simulate real combat conditions, where snipers rarely had the luxury of remaining in one location for extended periods. Santos, this is Kowalski. Her instructor's voice came through the radio. Outstanding shot placement, but your post-engagement movement needs work. In a real situation, that building would be taking incoming fire within 30 seconds of your shot. Maria acknowledged the feedback as she moved through the building's stairwell, the Barrett slung across her back, and her secondary weapon ready for close-quarters engagement. Urban sniper operations required proficiency with multiple weapon systems, as situations could transition from long-range precision shooting to room clearing in seconds. The second scenario placed her in a completely different environment. Instead of elevated positions with clear lines of sight, she found herself at ground level in a narrow alley, tasked with providing overwatch for a simulated hostage rescue operation. The range to her assigned sector was less than 200 meters, but the complexity was significantly higher. Control, this is Alpha Team, Maria reported as she settled into position behind a concrete barrier. In position and ready to provide support. Copy, Alpha Team. Rescue Team is moving to the objective. Your sector is the south-facing windows of Building 5. Any hostile movement in that area is cleared for immediate engagement. This scenario tested a sniper's ability to provide precision fire support in close proximity to friendly forces. The margin for error was essentially zero. A missed shot or misidentified target could result in friendly casualties. Maria understood that this level of responsibility was exactly what separated snipers from conventional infantry soldiers. She scanned her assigned sector methodically, noting potential hiding spots and likely avenues of approach. The Barrett felt almost oversized for this environment, but its stopping power was crucial when engaging targets that might be wearing body armor or taking cover behind intermediate barriers. Movement, Building 5, second floor window, she reported quietly. Single hostile, armed with what appears to be an RPG. Alpha Team, you are cleared hot. Control responded immediately. Take the shot. The target was partially concealed behind the window frame, presenting only a small portion of his torso. Maria had perhaps 3 seconds before he could acquire the rescue team's position and launch his rocket-propelled grenade. The shot required absolute precision, threading the needle between friendly forces below and the narrow target window above. She fired without hesitation, watching the bullet punch through the window and impact the target center mass. The hostile figure collapsed immediately, his weapon clattering to the floor and removing the threat to the rescue operation. Outstanding work, Alpha Team. Kowalski's voice carried a note of professional satisfaction. That's exactly the kind of split-second decision-making we need to see. The scenarios continued throughout the day, each presenting unique challenges that tested different aspects of urban sniper operations. Maria found herself engaging targets from sewers, through chain-link fences, around building corners, and from positions that would have been impossible to imagine in traditional field environments. By late afternoon, the group had been reduced to 9 candidates. 2 had been eliminated for failing to adapt to the urban environment, demonstrating that conventional sniper skills didn't automatically translate to built-up area operations. The survivors showed a combination of marksmanship ability, tactical thinking, and psychological resilience that set them apart from average soldiers. "Gather around," Kowalski called out as the final scenario concluded. Today's training demonstrated something important about the nature of modern military operations. Urban environments are becoming the primary battlefield, and snipers need to be able to operate effectively in these conditions. Maria listened intently as the instructor broke down the day's lessons, highlighting both individual and collective performance issues. The urban training had revealed weaknesses in her tactical movement and positioning that she needed to address before graduation. "Santos," Kowalski continued, "your shot placement remains consistently excellent, but you're still thinking like a field sniper in an urban environment. You need to embrace the chaos. Use it to your advantage rather than fighting against it." The feedback was accurate and valuable. Maria had indeed been trying to impose field techniques on urban problems, resulting in suboptimal positioning and movement patterns. The city required different thinking, more aggressive tactics, and greater willingness to accept risk in exchange for effectiveness. That evening, she studied building schematics and urban warfare manuals, absorbing tactical principles that would help her adapt to close-quarters precision shooting. The Barrett would need modifications for urban operations, including different optical systems and possibly sound suppression equipment that would reduce the acoustic signature. Candidate Patterson, one of the few remaining female soldiers in the course, approached as Maria worked on her equipment. They'd maintained a professional distance throughout training, but the shared experience of being minorities in a male-dominated field created a natural bond. "Rough day out there," Patterson observed, settling down nearby with her own gear. "I thought I was adapting well to urban tactics, but that last scenario showed me how much I still have to learn." "The environment changes everything," Maria agreed. "All the field techniques that worked perfectly in open country become liabilities when you're surrounded by buildings and civilians." "How are you handling the pressure?" Patterson asked quietly. "I know we're both dealing with extra scrutiny because of our gender. Sometimes I feel like I need to be twice as good just to be considered acceptable." Maria paused in her weapon maintenance, considering the question carefully. She'd felt that pressure throughout her military career, but had learned to channel it into motivation rather than letting it become a burden. "I try to focus on the mission rather than the politics," she said finally. "The targets don't care about your gender when the bullet arrives. If you can consistently put rounds where they need to go under stress, everything else becomes secondary." "That's a good way to look at it," Patterson nodded. "I just hope the instructors see it the same way." "Kowalski seems pretty objective," Maria observed. "He's been tough, but fair, focusing on performance rather than personal characteristics. If we can meet his standards, I think we'll be accepted based on merit." The conversation continued as both women worked on their equipment, sharing insights and techniques that would help them survive the remaining challenges. The bond between soldiers facing adversity together was one of the military's greatest strengths, transcending differences in background or demographics. Later that night, Maria lay on her bunk reviewing the day's events and planning for tomorrow's challenges. Urban sniper training would continue for another week, followed by advanced marksmanship tests and final evaluations. She'd proven her ability to adapt and perform under pressure, but the final hurdles would determine whether she graduated as a certified sniper. The Barrett M82A1 leaned against the wall beside her bunk, its matte black finish reflecting the dim barracks lighting. The weapon had become an extension of her own capabilities, responding to her intentions with mechanical precision. But she also understood that mastering the rifle was only part of becoming an effective sniper. Tomorrow would bring new scenarios, fresh challenges, and additional opportunities to prove her worth. The urban environment had tested her adaptability and forced her to evolve beyond conventional tactics. She'd passed those tests, but recognized that the final phase of training would demand everything she'd learned and more. Outside, the mock city lay silent under Georgia's stars, its empty windows and deserted streets waiting for tomorrow's battles. Maria had learned to navigate its complexities, to find opportunity in its chaos, and to deliver precision fire in conditions that challenged every assumption about sniper operations. The real test would come when she faced similar challenges with live ammunition and actual consequences. But tonight, she could rest knowing that she'd proven herself capable of urban precision shooting, that the Barrett remained her reliable partner in environments both familiar and foreign. Tomorrow would determine whether that partnership was strong enough to carry her through the final phase of the most demanding military course she'd ever attempted. The helicopter touched down in a cloud of red dust, its rotors churning the Afghan countryside into a miniature sandstorm that forced everyone to shield their eyes and cover their equipment. Maria gripped her rifle case tighter as the aircraft settled onto the improvised landing zone, knowing that this moment marked her transition from student to operational sniper. 6 months of training had led to this assignment with the 82nd Airborne Division, deployed to one of the most challenging theaters in the world. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez appeared through the dust cloud, his desert camouflage bearing the wear patterns of a soldier who'd spent considerable time in country. He moved with the controlled alertness that Maria had learned to recognize in combat veterans, eyes constantly scanning for threats that others might miss. "Santos," he called out over the helicopter's noise. "Welcome to Forward Operating Base Lightning. I'm your new team leader, and I hope you're ready to put that training to work." Maria shouldered her gear bag and followed Rodriguez away from the landing zone, noting the defensive positions and guard towers that ringed the base perimeter. FOB Lightning was clearly a forward position, close enough to the action that enemy contact was a regular possibility. This wasn't a rear area assignment where she could ease into combat operations gradually. "How's the tactical situation?" she asked as they walked toward the sniper team's quarters. "Active and evolving," Rodriguez replied without breaking stride. "Taliban forces have been probing our defensive lines for 3 weeks, testing response times and capabilities. They're planning something significant, and higher command wants sniper teams positioned to disrupt their operations." The briefing room was sparse, but functional, dominated by topographical maps and aerial photographs that showed the surrounding terrain in exhaustive detail. Maria studied the images while Rodriguez introduced her to the rest of the team. Corporal Davis on spotting duties, Sergeant Williams handling communications, and Private Martinez responsible for security and equipment. "Your reputation preceded you," Rodriguez continued, settling into a camp chair and pulling out a worn notebook. "Word from Fort Benning is that you're one of the strongest graduates they've seen in recent years. Urban operations, field craft, precision shooting under pressure, all excellent marks." "Thank you, Sergeant," Maria replied, though she knew that training performance meant nothing until it was validated in actual combat. "What's the mission timeline?" "Tomorrow morning we establish an overwatch position on Hill 247. Rodriguez pointed to a prominent elevation on the map. "Intelligence indicates Taliban forces are using that valley for movement and resupply. Our job is to disrupt their operations and provide early warning for base defense." Maria studied the terrain features, noting the elevation changes and potential fields of view. Hill 247 offered excellent observation of the surrounding area, but it would also make their position visible to enemy forces. Success would depend on superior camouflage and positioning to avoid counter-sniper fire. "What's the expected engagement range?" she asked, mentally calculating the ballistic requirements. 600 to 1,200 meters, depending on target location, Davis answered. "The Barrett should handle anything in that envelope without problems, assuming you can read the wind conditions correctly." "Wind can be tricky in that valley," Williams added. Mountain terrain creates unpredictable currents that change throughout the day. We've seen shots missed by feet because of sudden thermal shifts. The technical discussion continued as the team reviewed previous operations and lessons learned from earlier engagements. Maria absorbed the information while mentally preparing for her first combat deployment, knowing that theoretical knowledge would need to translate into life and death decisions under extreme stress. That evening, she performed a detailed inspection of her equipment, checking every component for signs of wear or potential failure. The Barrett M82A1 had been modified for Afghan conditions, with upgraded optics and environmental seals to protect against sand and dust infiltration. Her ammunition load consisted of match-grade .50 caliber rounds, each one capable of delivering devastating effectiveness at extreme range. Nervous? Martinez asked as he cleaned his own weapon nearby. First combat deployment can be pretty intense, especially when you're carrying that much firepower. Focused, Maria corrected. 6 months of training taught me what I need to know. Now it's just a matter of applying those lessons under real conditions. That's the right attitude, Rodriguez observed from his bunk. Confidence without overconfidence. The Taliban fighters we're facing aren't training targets. They're experienced combatants who've been fighting on this terrain for years. Respect their capabilities, but don't let fear compromise your performance. The pre-dawn departure was conducted with military precision, each team member checking and double-checking equipment before moving out. Maria carried the Barrett in a protective case, along with ammunition, optical equipment, and survival gear for an extended operation. The weight was substantial, but her training had prepared her for long movements under heavy load. The infiltration route took them through rugged mountain terrain that required careful navigation and constant security awareness. Taliban forces were known to establish ambush positions along likely approaches, making every ridge line and ravine a potential threat. The team moved in tactical formation, with Rodriguez leading and Maria positioned to provide immediate fire support if contact was made. Hill 247 appeared through the morning haze like a fortress, its rocky slopes offering excellent defensive positions, but requiring careful approach to avoid detection. The team spent 2 hours conducting reconnaissance before selecting their final position, looking for a site that balanced fields of view with concealment and escape routes. There, Rodriguez pointed to a cluster of boulders near the hill's crest. Natural camouflage, clear sight lines into the valley, and multiple egress routes if we need to displace quickly. The hide construction took another 3 hours, using natural materials and camouflage netting to create a position that would be invisible from more than 50 meters away. Maria positioned the Barrett to cover the primary engagement area, while Davis set up his spotting scope to provide target identification and range estimation. Movement in the valley, Davis reported quietly, scanning through his high-powered optics. Large group, approximately 20 individuals, moving southeast along the ridgeline. Maria swung her scope toward the indicated area, searching for the reported contacts. The terrain made observation difficult, with numerous dead spaces and concealed approaches that could hide enemy movement. When she finally spotted the group, they were already well within effective engagement range. I have them, she confirmed. Leading elements are carrying what appears to be heavy weapons. Possible mortar tubes or recoilless rifles. Range to target, Rodriguez asked, preparing to make the engagement decision. 850 meters, Davis replied after consulting his range-finding equipment. Wind is light and variable from the northwest. Maria made the necessary adjustments to her scope, compensating for range, wind, and the slight upward angle of the shot. The target group was moving across her field of view from left to right, requiring her to lead the movement slightly to ensure accurate bullet placement. "I'm ready to engage on your command," she reported, settling into a comfortable shooting position. Rodriguez studied the situation through his own binoculars, evaluating the tactical implications of opening fire. Once they revealed their position, the team would become a target for counter-battery fire and possible ground assault. The decision needed to balance mission effectiveness against crew survivability. Take the shot, he decided. Target the individual carrying the heavy weapon. Maria found her target in the scope's crosshairs, a figure near the front of the group who was clearly burdened with additional equipment. She controlled her breathing, waiting for the natural pause between heartbeats that marked optimal shooting conditions. The Barrett's trigger broke cleanly, sending a .50 caliber projectile screaming across the valley at nearly 3,000 feet per second. The impact was immediate and devastating. Her target dropped instantly, and the heavy weapon he'd been carrying scattered across the rocky terrain. The remaining enemy fighters dove for cover, their organized movement dissolving into chaos as they sought protection from an unseen threat. Good hit, Davis confirmed. Target is down, weapon destroyed. The rest of the group is taking cover and appears to be trying to identify our position. Time to displace, Rodriguez ordered. Pack it up. We're moving to secondary position before they can organize a response. The team broke down their position with practiced efficiency, erasing any trace of their presence while maintaining security in all directions. Maria secured the Barrett and prepared to move, knowing that their next position would need to offer both continued effectiveness and enhanced protection from counterattack. The movement to the secondary position took 30 minutes, during which time they could hear enemy forces searching the area around their original hide. The Taliban fighters were experienced enough to understand that the devastating accuracy of a shot indicated professional sniper activity, and they were clearly taking the threat seriously. Control, this is Overwatch 7, Rodriguez reported once they were established in the new position. One confirmed kill, heavy weapon destroyed, enemy force disrupted, and seeking cover. We're maintaining observation from secondary position. Outstanding work, Overwatch 7, came the reply. Continue mission as planned. Be advised that enemy radio intercepts indicate they're organizing a search operation in your area. The afternoon brought additional opportunities to engage enemy forces as Taliban units continued moving through the valley despite the obvious sniper threat. Maria's second engagement was at 1,100 meters, requiring careful compensation for wind and atmospheric conditions. Her bullet found its target with the same precision as the first, eliminating another threat to base security. 2 for 2, Davis observed as they prepared to displace once again. That's some impressive shooting under combat conditions. Maria felt a surge of confidence, tempered by awareness that combat success required more than marksmanship ability. She'd proven her technical skills, but survival in this environment demanded constant vigilance and tactical awareness. The enemy was adapting to their presence, and future engagements would likely be more challenging. The day's final engagement came unexpectedly, as a small group of enemy fighters attempted to flank their position using a concealed approach route. Maria spotted the movement through her scope and immediately alerted the team to the threat. Contact left, 300 meters, she called out. Multiple individuals moving to flank our position. The range was shorter than optimal for the Barrett, but the threat was immediate and required rapid response. Maria engaged the leading figure, watching him fall as her bullet impacted center mass. The remaining attackers took cover, but continued trying to advance, forcing the team into a running firefight as they displaced to avoid encirclement. Move, 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 Rodriguez shouted as enemy fire began impacting around their position. Santos, cover our withdrawal. Maria provided suppressive fire while the team bounded back toward their extraction point, using the Barrett's long-range capabilities to keep enemy fighters at a respectful distance. The heavy rifle wasn't ideal for close-quarters combat, but its psychological impact was significant enough to discourage aggressive pursuit. The extraction went smoothly, with the team reaching their pickup point without additional enemy contact. As the helicopter lifted off from the valley floor, Maria reflected on her first day of combat operations. She'd proven her abilities under fire, demonstrated tactical flexibility, and contributed meaningfully to mission success. Welcome to the war, Rodriguez said as they flew back toward FOB Lightning. You handled yourself well out there. The kind of precision shooting under pressure is exactly what we need in this fight. Maria nodded, understanding that this was just the beginning of what would likely be a long deployment. She'd passed the first test of combat operations, but the enemy would learn from today's encounters and adapt their tactics accordingly. Future engagements would require continued evolution of her own skills and techniques. The Barrett M82A1 lay secured beside her in the helicopter's cargo bay, its surfaces now bearing the dust and were marks of actual combat use. The weapon had performed flawlessly when it mattered most, delivering precision fire at extreme range under conditions that tested both equipment and operator to their limits. Tonight she would clean and inspect every component, preparing for tomorrow's mission and the countless challenges that lay ahead. But for now, she could take satisfaction in knowing that months of training had translated into real-world effectiveness, that her presence on the battlefield was making a tangible difference in the outcome of military operations. The morning briefing at FOB Lightning carried an urgency that Maria hadn't felt during their previous operations. General Morrison himself had flown an overnight to personally oversee what intelligence was calling a critical mission, and his presence drew every senior officer on the base to the command center. Maria sat in the back row with the other sniper teams, the Barrett case at her feet, and her equipment meticulously prepared for immediate deployment. Intelligence indicates that Taliban leadership is meeting in the Karengal Valley today, Colonel Bradley announced, his laser pointer highlighting a compound on the satellite imagery. This represents our best opportunity in months to eliminate key figures responsible for coordinating attacks throughout the region. Maria studied the target area carefully, noting the challenging terrain and limited approach routes. The compound sat on elevated ground with excellent visibility in all directions, surrounded by multiple defensive positions that would make infiltration nearly impossible. This wasn't a standard reconnaissance mission. It was a precision strike requiring exceptional skill and coordination. Sniper teams will establish overwatch positions here, and here, the colonel continued, indicating two ridgelines that offered potential firing positions. Primary targets are confirmed high-value individuals whose elimination would significantly disrupt enemy operations in this sector. Sir, what's the estimated range to target? Rodriguez asked from his position near the front of the briefing room. 12 to 1,500 meters from the nearest feasible position, came the reply. Environmental conditions are favorable, with light winds and excellent visibility predicted throughout the operational window. Maria felt her pulse quicken. 1,500 meters represented the outer edge of reliable precision shooting, even with the Barrett's capabilities. Success would require perfect environmental analysis, flawless equipment performance, and shooting skills that push the boundaries of what was humanly possible. This mission has strategic importance beyond the immediate tactical situation, General Morrison added, stepping to the podium. These targets are responsible for planning attacks that have killed dozens of American soldiers. Their elimination could save countless lives and significantly degrade enemy capabilities in this theater. The weight of that responsibility settled on Maria's shoulders as she absorbed the mission details. This wasn't just another engagement. It was an opportunity to strike a meaningful blow against forces that had been terrorizing the region for months. The pressure was immense, but she trained her entire career for moments exactly like this. Team assignments, Colonel Bradley announced. Rodriguez's team will take the primary position, with Santos as the designated marksman. Patterson's team will provide backup and security from the secondary position. Rules of engagement are weapons free upon positive target identification. Maria exchanged glances with Rodriguez, understanding that her reputation as the most consistently accurate shooter had earned her the primary engagement responsibility. 6 months of combat operations had proven her abilities beyond any doubt, but this mission would test her skills at the absolute limits of the Barrett's effective range. The helicopter insertion was conducted in pre-dawn darkness, with both teams infiltrating simultaneously to different positions overlooking the target compound. Maria's team faced a grueling 4-hour approach march through mountainous terrain that would test their physical conditioning as much as their tactical skills. Movement needs to be silent and slow, Rodriguez warned as they began the final approach to their position. Sound carries for miles in this terrain, and we can't afford to alert enemy security forces. The climb to their designated firing position was exhausting, with the team carrying full combat loads up slopes that sometimes exceeded 40-degree angles. Maria's equipment bag felt like it weighed twice its actual mass, but she learned to push through physical discomfort without compromising her concentration or effectiveness. "There's our position," Davis whispered, pointing to a cluster of rocks that offered both concealment and clear sight lines to the target compound. Perfect natural camouflage, multiple escape routes, and excellent fields of view. The high construction took 2 hours, as the team used every available piece of natural cover to create a position that would be invisible from ground level. Maria positioned the Barrett carefully, ensuring that the massive rifle was completely concealed while maintaining the ability to engage targets at extreme range. "Range to compound is 1,400 meters, Davis reported after consulting his laser rangefinder. "Wind is light from the southeast, approximately 3 miles per hour. Atmospheric conditions are optimal for long-range shooting." Maria began the complex process of calculating her firing solution, factoring in range, wind speed, and direction, temperature, humidity, and altitude. At 1,400 meters, even tiny errors in environmental analysis could result in complete misses, making precision in every calculation absolutely critical. "Control, this is Overwatch 7, Rodriguez reported over the radio. "In position and ready to commence observation. Target compound is visible and showing normal activity levels." "Copy, Overwatch 7. Maintain observation and await target identification. Mission authority remains with higher command." The wait began a test of patience and mental discipline that was often more challenging than the actual shooting. Maria remained motionless behind the Barrett, scanning the compound through her high-powered scope while maintaining absolute readiness to engage on command. "Movement in the courtyard," Davis reported quietly. 3 individuals. One appears to match the primary target description. Maria swung her scope to the indicated area, studying the figures moving through the compound's central area. Even at maximum magnification, positive identification was difficult at this range, requiring careful observation of clothing, body language, and distinctive characteristics. "I need better visibility," she whispered. "Current angle doesn't provide sufficient detail for positive identification." The targets moved between buildings, occasionally disappearing behind walls, and vehicles that blocked clear observation. Maria tracked their movement patterns, anticipating where they might reappear and adjusting her position accordingly. "There," Davis said suddenly. Primary target just moved into the open area near the main building. Clear view, no obstructions. Maria found the figure in her scope, a man in distinctive white robes who matched exactly the intelligence photographs they'd studied during mission preparation. He stood in conversation with 2 other individuals, completely unaware that he was being observed from nearly a mile away. "Positive identification on primary target," she reported. "Clear shot, no collateral concerns, ready to engage on command." The radio crackled with traffic as higher command confirmed the target identification and authorized the engagement. Maria felt her heart rate slow as she entered the focused mental state that characterized her best shooting, where environmental factors became mathematical equations and target acquisition became an extension of her own will. "You are clear to engage," Control finally transmitted. "Repeat, clear to engage primary target." Maria settled into her final firing position, feeling the Barrett's weight distribute perfectly across her body. 1,400 meters stretched between her position and the target, a distance that would challenge every aspect of her training and experience. The bullet would take nearly 2 seconds to reach its destination, during which time wind conditions, target movement, or equipment failure could compromise the mission. She controlled her breathing, allowing her body to find its natural rhythm while maintaining perfect sight alignment. The crosshairs settled on the target's center mass, compensating for the slight wind drift and the minimal bullet drop at this range. Everything she'd learned about precision shooting, environmental analysis, and tactical patience converged into this single moment. The Barrett fired with its characteristic thunderclap, the massive recoil absorbed by her body and the rifle's recoil system. Maria maintained her sight picture, tracking the bullet's flight time while preparing for possible follow-up shots. 1,400 meters away, the .50 caliber projectile arrived with devastating accuracy. "Good hit," Davis confirmed through his spotting scope. "Target is down, no movement. Clean engagement, mission accomplished." The impact on the compound was immediate and dramatic. The remaining figures scattered for cover, their organized meeting dissolving into chaos as they realized they were under observation from an unknown location. Security forces began deploying throughout the area, searching for threats they couldn't identify or locate. "Outstanding shot," Rodriguez said quietly. "That's some of the finest long-range shooting I've ever witnessed. Textbook precision under extreme pressure." Maria began the process of securing her equipment for immediate displacement, knowing that enemy forces would soon organize a systematic search of potential sniper positions. The mission was complete, but their survival depended on rapid movement away from the area before counter-sniper teams could triangulate their location. "Control, this is Overwatch 7, Rodriguez reported. "Mission accomplished, primary target eliminated. Beginning displacement to extraction point. Outstanding work, Overwatch 7. Extraction team is standing by at designated location. Exercise extreme caution during movement. Enemy forces are mobilizing throughout the area." The movement to the extraction point required 3 hours of careful navigation through terrain that was now swarming with hostile forces. Maria's team used every available piece of cover and concealment, moving in bounds while maintaining constant security awareness. The successful shot had achieved the mission objective, but it had also made them the highest priority target for every enemy unit in the region. "Helicopter inbound," Williams reported as they reached the extraction landing zone. 2 minutes to pick up. The extraction was conducted under fire, with enemy forces engaging the helicopter as it lifted off from the valley floor. Maria clutched her rifle case as tracer rounds streaked past the aircraft, knowing that their mission success had come at the cost of increased danger during withdrawal. "Mission debrief in 30 minutes, Rodriguez announced as they flew toward FOB Lightning. "But I can tell you right now that shot was absolutely perfect. 1,400 meters in combat conditions. That's elite-level precision shooting." Back at base, the mission debrief was attended by General Morrison himself, who personally commended the team's performance and the strategic impact of their success. Intelligence reports confirmed that the eliminated target had been responsible for coordinating multiple attacks throughout the region, making his removal a significant blow to enemy capabilities. Staff Sergeant Santos, the general said directly to Maria, "That shot represents some of the finest marksmanship I've seen in 30 years of military service. Your precision under those conditions was absolutely exceptional." "Thank you, sir," Maria replied. "Just doing my job." "No, Sergeant, you did far more than that. You demonstrated the kind of skill and professionalism that makes the difference between mission success and failure. Your country owes you a debt of gratitude." The recognition was gratifying, but Maria understood that her greatest satisfaction came from knowing that her training and dedication had translated into real strategic impact. The months of preparation, the countless hours of practice, and the unwavering focus on excellence had culminated in a single shot that would save American lives and degrade enemy capabilities. That evening, she performed her routine maintenance on the Barrett M82A1, the weapon that had been her partner throughout this journey from skeptical trainee to proven sniper. The rifle had performed flawlessly when it mattered most, delivering precision fire at the absolute limits of its capabilities. Together, they had proven that skill and determination could overcome any challenge that gender was irrelevant when measured against performance under pressure. The deployment would continue for several more months, bringing additional missions and opportunities to serve. But this moment would remain the defining achievement of her military career, the shot that proved beyond any doubt that she belonged among the military's elite precision shooters. Outside, the Afghan mountains stretched endlessly under a star-filled sky, their peaks and valleys holding secrets and dangers that would challenge future generations of soldiers. Maria had faced those challenges and emerged victorious, earning her place in the Brotherhood of Snipers through demonstrated excellence rather than political consideration. The Barrett M82A1 stood ready for whatever came next, its capabilities proven at 1,400 meters against a target that had terrorized the region for months. Tomorrow would bring new missions and fresh challenges, but tonight belonged to the memory of perfect precision when it mattered most, of a single shot that changed the strategic balance in a war-torn valley halfway around the world. General Morrison's words echoed in her mind as she prepared for sleep. Elite-level precision shooting. She had achieved the recognition she'd fought for throughout her career, not through special treatment or lowered standards, but through superior performance when the stakes were highest. The woman they'd once laughed at for struggling with the Barrett's weight had become the sniper they called upon when failure wasn't an option.